If I presented the proclamation, I'm under orders. All people like me in New Zealand are under orders. I have to put on a mask. I have to put on gloves.
Oh, really? A mask and glove? Okay.
I am double vaccinated.
Yeah. Most of us here too have been, but we do have masks over there.
Oh, no, I have been.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. You don't have gloves though.
I didn't know I had gloves, but my wife said, yes, go upstairs and have them.
Oh, wow, I know. No, it's just something else. I'm glad things are starting to relax on
Yeah.
it though.
Yeah, and I'm surprised I haven't relaxed this bit, but
Right.
anyway.
She'll be here via Zoom.
She's the one. Trees. Pond and all. I'm sure she is. I'm just going to myself. I have nothing pleasant to say.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think it's more like
I guess you know that Francis did that.
Yeah.
I might remember Todd. They hired Todd to do some of that stuff. Yeah, that's very much to do, right?
And also, Carl.
That's right. Carl Dave. Can you imagine her? Yeah. Okay. I can say it.
You know, I have been
That's so cool.
Oh. I just said tomorrow.
I'm inside the.
I'll walk from the wall.
anyway. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Can you see this center? On top of it?
I just saw it, what was,
Oh,
yeah,
okay, that's it.
yeah.
Very good. Print. I don't think I like it.
Cynthia's kind of zooming in, so that's fine.
Okay. It's remarkable. Yes, I guess for a grandmother, had perhaps an adverse reaction to the vaccine.
Is she local?
No, all the way in Missouri.
Wow.
I think it's Missouri.
Yeah.
But they went out there and I guess had to close up the house and everything else.
Oh, but she has one.
No. They're bringing her back here.
Oh,
So they can pay for it.
Hi, how are you?
did he get home?
No, he's still, he's not everybody, just got out of their cars and are just walking around the highway.
You catch me coming off, so.
Oh, there.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to turn the box. You have an iPhone? You have an iPhone? Yeah, yeah. There should be a button on your side, the left-hand side there. You- Well, what you do is you'll put it on the side. And see the little orange thing right here? You push down so the orange thing shows.
Is
So
it
you
mine?
don't want buzz, and it won't let me out.
I can tell them.
Okay.
I do it all the time, pal. I didn't realize that I couldn't stay push, and I'm wondering why I don't get on that. Why that's- Yeah, you didn't do it in the last 6 months. You don't know.
Are we being?
There you go, there you go. That's what it is.
I try to stay out. It just. I guess it's an exhibit.
Yeah. My daughter was just saying when she's a junior in high school, I had something going on, I just wanted her to say, hey, do this thing, whatever it is. Just in case.
All the things that goes to the
That's right. Nobody's been talking to you.
Anche la cosa che mi credo cambiata también.
Ah.
Can I have some of that?
Quiero que me diga.
Ahí ya. Bueno, y pues, trabajo usted.
I don't see her. She's pretty good.
There you go. There you go. Well, I just-
Stranger.
I know, I just said, I think you said.
I thought you knew. No.
It's a lot of fun.
We're almost there.
That's all right.
Age.
I said the last one.
Yeah.
That's your house.
This is right. Yeah. Okay, I only have one. Oh. No, what? Ask me. You're the one.
You want the screen?
Yeah.
I think it's just, some days it's nice to.
It's almost like he's right here.
I know. No, I can. Yeah, right.
Talking to the barber about
I saw Channel 5 outside. I see Channel 5
Just the three of them in the
Well, I only have the 1%. But, it doesn't, I've got it watched in the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Questions on that? No. Okay.
Yeah, well. Before you go to work, and she's working. Me? Either, yes.
Very good to see you. To collect, I guess. Good thing. William Clark. Sat here by your college. So you teach in the city? All right. Oh, congratulations. Thank you. There goes. Everybody likes that.
Hi, everybody.
That's a real thing. My orders are, not the big, the orders from, I have to wear a mask, and actually wear gloves. Well, that's fine. Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, Dan. Hey, Troy. Hey, Gary. Mayor, Francis, Ashley.
Dog's leash.
Pass on some.
I'm gonna have to count over.
Jane. She's great.
Right.
I don't know what I say.
You all can all hear me okay? Yeah?
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, pretty much. I can hear you now that you're speaking, yes.
Okay.
I may have to ask for a couple repeats though, because it sounds kind of echoey. And I apologize that I can't be there, but family emergencies made that impossible.
Use the microphone for us.
Hey.
So
And I can't hear Garrett very much at all right now when he's speaking. Hi, Bo, how are you?
Hello.
Yeah. The regular meeting of the Town of James Island is hereby called to order. The first item on the agenda is our public hearing for ordinance 2021, our James Island Comprehensive Plan. We have someone signed up to speak.
if I might,
Maybe one.
okay, just as.
All right, there is no one signed up for the public hearing for the comprehensive plan, so I call that public hearing. Closed. James, would you like to speak about?
No, she signed up for something, but not the comprehensive.
All right, next, we have a public hearing on our annual budget. So I call that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I really am having a hard time hearing you, Mayor. I don't know if you guys can move the microphone closer to you guys, but I'll try and listen as close as I can.
So we now have a public hearing for the budget. There is no one signed up to speak at the public hearing, and so I call that public hearing closed. Now, the next item on the agenda is our public comment, and we have two people signed up for public comment. The first is Marianne Tice.
Yes. Got one up there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wanted to talk to everybody about a problem that I've been having, and it will be 2 years since this started in September. I'll show y'all these pictures here. You've already seen it. My house is on Larkwood Road and it backs up to, County Code. Right behind my house was an empty lot and, it was out and requested to make that into a drainage ditch, which they did. But they also dug up so much of the dirt and it was so much sand that it destroyed the roots on the trees back there. I noticed it first when Hurricane Dorian came in September. The big trees were bending almost over to my house. They're on James Island's property though. The fence was torn all to pieces in places in my yard and my neighbor's yard. I immediately got in touch with the town to try to get something done about it, get the trees removed. You can see the roots around them. I called and called the town. I could not talk with the mayor. He was either never there or not taking calls. So after a while, I put it on Facebook. And I guess that's what he does with his time, because he snapped right back at me maybe 10 or 15 minutes after I put it on there. That what Mark Johnson had said about not taking the trees down was correct. And he said that if I didn't like it, I'd meet with him. But then I had a problem meeting with him. But once we met and he could see the trees, I could tell that he knew that those trees needed to go down. They came after maybe 5 or 6 months, I don't remember exactly, and took the bigger trees down. But they left 3. 2 really tall willowy trees, but they reach all the way up to my house and they're heavy. And then 1 tree that was completely rotted. I went back and forth with them about removing those trees. You can see the pink ribbon around them where Mark Johnson came out with another guy that I believe he said was an expert on the trees. And they said they had to go down and they marked them with the pink ribbon. And that has gone on and on and on. So this past June, I called trying to get them to go into it. I was afraid of another hurricane season. And Mark Johnson said no, that they could not do it again, that the town was broke. They did not have any money for anything like that. And then he said,
Ma'am, that's 3 minutes and you can try to wrap up your thoughts.
okay. Then he said they would come and they would take care of it in August. They did not do it in August. And I could not call because my husband passed away in August. But I have been calling and calling since then. And the last time I talked with your man, and I told him what Marcus said about there was no money to remove it. He started screaming at me and hung up the phone. Finally, this spring, I went ahead, because Marcus told me if you want the trees down, you just don't have to take them down yourself, even though they're on your property. So I went ahead and found someone to take trees down for me. And they stacked them up over on his side by the fence. As you can see by the pictures, the fence is coming down really bad on my side and my next door neighbors. And they have 2 small children, really small kids. They're terrified that one of them's going to get away and get into that big ditch. That drainage ditch goes under the ground, under a neighbor's house, under the road, out to the marsh. If it sucked a child out of that, they would be dead. I'm here, I'm asking for my $750 that I paid paid to have your trees removed. I'm asking that y'all take care of the expense of mine and our neighbors. And I'm also asking that y'all do something about the drainage ditch, because it is so dangerous for children, and I see them there all the time. Now that the fence is happening, I can see them over there playing in it, and it's so dangerous. I started working in Charleston County Schools in '89, and right before that happened, 2 children were swept out in the drainage ditch over in the West Ashley area, and I don't think they're.
Guys,
So it
3
is a
minutes,
dangerous.
or
Huh?
5.5 minutes now.
Well,
Thank you.
sorry. Okay, I said it.
Okay, so, next we have, thank you so much for your
Thank you.
remarks.
I have a quick
Next we
question.
have,
I didn't get the last name.
Giges, Giges. Mary Ann Henry.
Okay, this is about Brantley Road. Am I here on the right time?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay. All right. And you have 2 Mary Anns in a row. That's gotta be something good. Okay, I'm Mary Ann Henry, and I live at 825 West Madison Avenue in Centerville, which is the neighborhood adjacent, as you all probably already know, to the proposed park on Brantley Avenue. Even though it's technically not in our subdivision, it's right next to it. There's going to be an 8-foot sidewalk that links our subdivision to Brantley Park. It's fair to say residents in Centerville will be the primary users of the park. I can tell you, I get around, I call the neighbors. I spoke, and all the neighbors I spoke to about this issue thought it was a done deal. They read about it months ago in the paper. They're all excited about it, and they did not know that it hit a snag here at town council. So if you haven't had a lot of feedback about it, that's why. While the proximity to the noise of Falling Road is not ideal, but we all live with it, many of my neighbors have said the same thing. It's better than nothing. Because nothing, as far as green space, is basically what Centerville has currently. We understand that town council or some members, one or whatever, might have an issue with the 5 parking spaces allotted. I ask you to look at Walk Street Park, which I go to all the time. I drive over there. It's wonderful. It's popular. It's well used, and it has 5 spaces, and it's not a problem there. Park design professionals have said that 5 spaces are appropriate for that small park proposed at Brantley Avenue. And plus, this is big. There's a big public parking area a few steps away at Santee and Polly, which is a big public parking lot. This park was designed by Green Space and public park design professionals. The funds are in place. The residents are excited. We ask that town council members step out of the way of blocking it and move forward with approving it, because truly, I know I'm the only one here. I'm the old timer in Centerville. We're all young. We all have little kids. They're with me in spirit. And we really, really, really want the park. We beg you to please approve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that is all the public comment we have for tonight. So now we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the April 15th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So now we'll go to information reports. First is the finance report.
Okay, the revenue, loss and hospitality are all for the month of March. The franchise fee is from Bell South. Under public works and groundskeeping, $2,500 of that, was to the town, arborist. Under Parks and Recreation, the youth sports program, the $12,625 are 3 seasons, 505 children. Under community services, the $222 under tree council worker insurance. I think that's the last of the insurance for the season. capital project under Highwood Circle, that's $4,100 from Stantec. The $5,310 for drainage improvements were for Schooner.
Any questions?
I do.
Councilman Young.
Yes. Hi, Meryl. I have a couple questions under Public Works for asset management. What was that, 5294?
That was all for our fee to Thompson Hutton on developing our asset management plan.
Okay. Hold on just a second. Let me write this down. And then I have a couple, just two other questions, I think. What about the groundskeeping for 6290? What was that for?
$2,500 was for the arborist.
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that?
$2,500 of that was for the town arborist.
And the rest would have been our general
General.
maintenance of streets and sidewalks.
Okay. And the 2,500 one more time was for what?
The town arborist.
Okay, thank you. And then my last, give me just a second. And the rest of that was for what again?
I think
General maintenance and groundskeeping.
Okay,
went to a heart line that does a lot of our upkeep on Fort Johnson Road and Harvey Creek Road and Town Hall, but then also probably, you know, some trips to Lowe's for grass seeding and things like that.
okay, thank you. My last question is under hazard mitigation for the 2152.
That was for our North South project. For,
Okay.
The green space on North South, that hazard mitigation project.
Oh,
We
I
haven't
got,
contractor yet, or in full, so that was probably the fee to Stantec, the construction management.
okay. Thank you. Let me see. I think that's it for my questions. Thank you very much, Meryl and Ashley.
Yes. Councilman Bowles.
Do any of those figures include the money that was spent at stands throughout?
No.
What heading is that?
Yes, that would have been first charge to Sandy.
Which we have $500.
Under hospitality? Okay. Do you know when we incurred that charge?
No, I don't know that.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? All right, thank you so much, Meryl. Now for the administrative report.
Okay, on May 10th, we received some good news from the U.S. Treasury that we're able to utilize the American Recovery Funds for managing and treating stormwater infrastructure. Subsurface drainage water uses. So that's good news. Arts and Cultural Center update, the roof work is scheduled to be complete today. You've ridden by there last week, you might have seen the big crane we had out, lifting up the unit and doing all that. So, and our position for the manager, that's closed. We received probably a couple dozen applications and grants, going through those now. We do have a request for proposals that has been advertised for on-call pavement and pavement management services, I think is what we call it, maintenance and repair. This is for concrete and asphalt work. You know, we can't get the county, you know, not that we can't get the county, but maybe when they can't get it done fast enough or for whatever reason, these would be for like apron repairs, but also sidewalk repairs on the sidewalks that we are responsible for maintenance on. Those will be back on May 27th. We've had some notices go out, on these, permits that's been submitted for ocean view drainage. We did have one public comment come back on ocean view drainage, and that was, from someone wanting to know, actually, Katie Zimmerman asking about, if the project would impede the bike, the sidewalks on Fort Johnson Road, which it would not. It doesn't come anywhere close to the sidewalk, so, we had that one question answered. And then the Foxcroft underground project is still on schedule for the June completion date. Surveyors have been out, marked the 5 locations along Foxcroft. And then you'll just see on the permitting numbers, lots of construction activity, lots of, zoning permits and lots of code enforcement cases, right now, really. That's all I have.
Any questions for the town administrator? Councilman Miller.
When are you going to make a decision about who you hire for the James Island Arts and Cultural Center?
After we go through the interviews.
So August?
Oh, I mean, I would hope, I'm sorry. I would hope way before then.
Okay,
I mean, I would hope and at least have it in June.
all right, very good, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Ashley. Now the public works report, Mark.
Good evening, everyone. There were no new requests for service in April, so staff responded to requests for project updates and status of current work requests. Staff participated in a webinar on low-impact development methods in coastal areas of South Carolina that was done by Clemson Extension. Staff filled potholes and smoothed the surface of Santee parking lot. Staff monitored the tree survey interns on Fort Johnson Road. The interns completed from Pinckney Park to Crescent Street, which is quite phenomenal. Staff and town arborists reviewed their data with a random sampling of recorded trees and found the interns were doing an excellent job with around 80% accuracy rate for the data collected. Staff participated in an intergovernmental meeting and also in a hybrid neighborhood counseling. We participated in a virtual hazard mitigation meeting with Charleston County and other stakeholders and met with SCDOT and JPSD twice to discuss culvert rehabilitation on Dills Bluff Road at Fort Sumter. Staff also met several times with nearby residents to discuss the situation and keep them updated. Staff received new pet waste bag dispensers for attaching dog leashes, which we now have. Staff cleaned 10 signs in April, installed 6 new stop signs. We filled 5 potholes with 12 bags of material, and we have been cutting vegetation out of the right of way all over the place.
Are there any questions for Mark?
I want to again commend you for getting the interns trained and getting the tree survey started. Sometimes half the battle is getting something started. That's a really good asset management feature.
Thank you. So, on the end of Canopy Cove Drive, what is at the end of Canopy Cove Drive?
That's a dry pond.
And this dry pond was constructed by whom?
Whoever the developer was. Of Canopy Cove.
So this was not a ditch developed by the town of James Island.
In no way.
Now regarding the trees along the edge of this dry pond, so did you determine that all of these trees need to be removed?
No.
You did not?
No.
And did you ever tell anyone that the town was broke and the reason for not removing trees was because we had no money?
No.
I understand. So, it is important for council to understand the situation. However, there is another factor. While Canopy Cove developed this dry pond, the town has taken over maintenance of that dry pond. Do you remember when
I want to say it was 2 years ago, might have been 3.
So this dry pond is the responsibility of the town. This related to adding drainage along Tallwood, right? So our drainage project along Tallwood drains into the dry pond. And as part of the agreement to allow us to drain to that area, we took over management of the dry pond, which I consider important. We do a good job of maintaining it. We're always consistent that we do so, and public works staff does work on it. However, we've had disagreements about whether trees were in danger or dangerous to houses and whether the town should take them down. Now, it's the first I've heard that, did you instruct homeowners that they should take down trees on our property?
What I said was that we were not going to be taking those trees down, and if she really wanted them down, she should take them down.
And were these trees, well, okay, well, I need to look into that. We should find out more about that before we have people take trees down in our easements. But anyway, all right, any other questions?
He's not repeating that because he's talking so low and mumbling that we can't hear it on the back row.
I'm just asking the county public works director.
We can't hear you either.
So it sounds to me like there was just kind of a back and forth addressing Ms. Geiges. I don't know if I'm saying it right.
I'm sorry?
How do you pronounce her last name?
Yes.
Geiges? I think there's kind of a colloquy right there directed at you, what you just brought up in the public hearing. There was a conversation addressing what you brought up at the public hearing
Right.
just now.
And I could not hear it back there because she was standing.
Technically, you're not allowed to even respond to it, even if you could hear it.
Do what?
Technically, you would not be allowed to respond to it, even if you could hear it.
I wasn't asking to respond. I was asking you to repeat it so I could hear it.
If you wait till the end of the meeting, I'll be happy to talk with you about that. My question to you, Mr. Mayor, though, is what, do we just have a back and forth that addresses public comment when the public can't respond?
Exactly.
To
What we're
back and
finding
forth.
out, I'm getting a report on the situation. I know it's all this time.
Does anyone know whether what she said about, the Facebook back and forth is true? Is what she said about the Facebook exchange accurate?
I have no idea, I didn't understand anything about a Facebook exchange.
I recall her talking about putting something up on Facebook and that you responded to it. Did you respond to anything that she put up on Facebook?
Not that I recollect.
Mark, you had an arborist look at the trees too?
No.
Okay.
Who looked at the trees?
Douglas,
At all times?
yes.
Thank you.
Who's responsible for that area, just generally speaking? I mean, is it our town?
It's already,
Okay, so if a tree does fall on a house, who is going to have to be responsible for that?
well, we will.
We did take some trees down, I think 2 or 3.
We took 3.
I believe it was Murray Tree Care that removed those.
Do you know whether these photographs are accurate? Like, is this recent?
I haven't seen them. Yes, that's the fence, that's the condition of it.
And is this the dry pond, the little like L-shaped?
No, that is a fort that the kids in the neighborhood built.
Okay. And the dry pond is this, what's got water in it in this picture?
Right, that must have been after a storm, it holds water for maybe 48 hours.
And this tree in the bottom right is leaning over like that, that's happening right now.
No, those have all been removed.
All the trees in with the pink ribbons have been removed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next, we have our annual emergency plan update. James?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As you know, the town staff conducts an annual update of its comprehensive emergency management plan to address various issues contained therein. Last year, we focused on hurricane management as the county had just undergone a major revision of its plan, moving from 5 to 1 to 3 to 1 on its different levels of preparedness. So we followed suit to be on the same wavelength. This year, since obviously we're dealing with the pandemic, we looked at the pandemic section of the plan to see what we could improve based on the experiences we had this year. Our main focus really is on communication. What we realize is, we aren't the ones that have the vaccines, we aren't the ones that necessarily are able to give out the food, but we know people who are. So the main thing we try to focus on is communication with the public, the business community, and other local governments. We improved our intergovernmental cooperation regarding both county and state E&D practices, updates, and also other local government actions, whether it's the city or Charleston or Mount Pleasant. So we were summer throughout the tri-county area in the actions that were taken. Some of the major focuses that we looked at as far as getting information out regarding food supply, whether it be James Island Outreach or the church just across the street over here that has food distribution on a regular basis. Also vaccination clinics. As you may be aware, the county is working with Federal Health on doing clinics at the various library locations around the Charleston County area, including Baxter Patrick over here on James Island. The Baptist Church in front of us has also done at least 3 clinics so far, and I believe they have another one coming. It's actually where I got my shots done. We had and the National Guard. We've also talked about ordinance changes and face mask policy that we did have in place while we were in the severe aspect of dealing with the pandemic. Review this information, basically give out either through news releases, town website, or our neighborhood council, which meets every month. Moving forward, we're looking at improving our hardware and software capabilities to improve communication through Zoom and conference calls, and whatever can be next down the pipe as technology changes. This improved communication actually led to a rabies, distemper, and microchip clinic that was held here at Town Hall last Saturday, where we had over 100 pets get either microchips or their distemper and rabies shots. We've actually had a little bit higher than usual rabies situation in Charleston County over the last 2 years. We've been working with the on trying to address that since February, March. So we were able to pull this clinic together, and it went really well. We ran from 9 to 2 on Saturday and had roughly 120 pets get what they needed. We did that in conjunction with pet owners over here on Folly Road. They came into the vets, and we provided the opportunity to work out really well. As far as the rest of the thing goes, hurricane season coming up, we're doing our roster updates that we do every year to make sure we have this current information to reach not only town council members, but our neighborhood council, the CERT committee, various other committees that will be dealing with hurricane situations. And just so you're all aware, since the season is starting next month, the current prediction is for 13 to 20 storms, 6 to 10 of them to be hurricanes, and 3 or 6 of those to be major storms. So this hope is kind of like last year. We had plenty else going on, so fortunately we didn't have a hurricane. Let's hope for that this season as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
All right. So next we have a request for approval. The first is the award of the Brantley Park Phase 1.
You skip over the sheriff's control.
Oh, yes, I did. Island Sheriff Patrol. Sorry.
All right. First, Sean, let me express his apologies for not being able to be here again this evening, stuck on fuel with TGH in the future. Luckily, things on the island have not been major, there have been any major crimes, so I'm on that stays that way. We've had some small incidents with vandalism, thefts, things of that nature. As far as my current statistics for this month so far, I stopped 21 vehicles, I issued 21 warnings, I made 2 general sessions on the arrest. One of those was a warrant served for a gentleman that blew the stop sign right by your home, sir. Caught him, and he was actually wanted to clear the seat as well as stop sign 3 weeks prior and led our deputies on a chase. So, it's pretty fun. I've done 5 reports and I've handled 15 calls for service myself. The other thing, Sergeant James wanted me to go over the Durango that the town has for the Island Sheriff's Patrol. Myself will be done by the end of next week. It's been at the county public works getting outfitted, there's a lot of equipment that had to go with it. It will have the town's logo, the blue one on each side, the left and the right, and it also says county 2000 on the back. And so he said by the end of next week, it should be finished and out here, and you guys will all be able to see it. Okay?
Any questions, Deputy?
Stay safe out there.
Thank you, sir. I will bring up this, if you guys know that everybody in the areas you represent know, continue to lock your vehicles at night, don't leave your keys in the car or valuables. We did have a vehicle that was stolen, but recovered later, but he left the vehicle unlocked with the key in the ignition. Things like that are, criminals see that, they're gonna go for it. So if you could remind everybody in your areas to make sure they lock their vehicles at night, don't leave anything valuable, or keys in it, or firearms. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we will go to request for approval. We will award grant Park Phase 1. That was deferred to this meeting, and so we are entering into this already in discussion. So we can continue discussion from the last meeting. So I would ask though that we ask for the town administrator asked to look into or determined to look into some questions about the dock and pervious pavement, and she sent a memo to the council, but I was asked town administrator to briefly explain what she found out about the park.
Yes, on the pervious pavement aspect, like I said in my memo, they didn't, look into it, as much because of the cost benefit, ratio, and there's only a few spaces, and given the drainage, that runs underneath. However, it's certainly a possibility to, go back, have that, redesigned, re-permitted with DOT. We would definitely have to accept maintenance from DOT if it was coming as permeable. And on the dock issue, and one more thing, actually, on the cost of permeable, you could, if council decided to move forward, with the phase 1 improvements, we could do their bid is good through August, and we could do a change order, if that all worked out, with the permeable. It is about 1.5 to 2 times more the cost of traditional asphalt, because you do have to add in some additional base layers. And so it's just more material that comes onto the site, and increases the cost a little bit. Again, it's something we could certainly look into. On the dock issue, we've had so much back and forth with OCRM, and sometimes we feel like we get a different answer every time we ask, but really, it was made quite clear this time that, moving the location of the dock was not an option. They see it as, basically when that dock was originally permitted, it was, I guess, allowed and things have changed since as far as restrictions on the width of the creek point there, which is why they wouldn't permit it today. But they would allow us to replace the existing dock in the same, or a similar dock in the same footprint, same location. The idea is, to them, is that the area is already disturbed, and so, we wouldn't have to worry about, disturbing more of the marsh grass and then that kind of led to, they, advised and didn't say it was necessary, but they did advise it would probably be best to leave that dock in place, until we, did receive the permit, for the new structure.
So Bradley Park is open right now.
I don't see it being open, and I wouldn't recommend that we tell people that it's open, because we do have, there is ADA requirements, and I think it was, looking at the law, 2012, I think is, law went back a long time ago, but for local governments opening a new park or, renovating it or changing it substantially, would require us to come into compliance with, ADA. And so that means the parking, but it also means any sort of, access to amenities. And so we learned this at Pinky Park, we had to, the trails are ADA designed. We had to make sure they were, graded and compacted in a way, that would allow a wheelchair to roll over them, they have to be wide enough. We had to,
There's no fence around the park right now. 'Cause I went there the other day and I looked at it. I took pictures of the creek and the dock, and I was able to, walk around in the grass or in the shade. That's what I mean when I say it's.
okay, yeah.
Someone can ride their bicycle there, someone can walk up to it and access the yard.
But
Even as you
the
speak
goal,
today.
it's important that we not tell people it's open. It is true that we have not fenced it off with the no trespassing signs, and I certainly do not want to do that. But it would be, it is illegal. If we say that it's open, we are bringing ourselves into out of compliance with ADA. We're not being accessible. And so we still need this. I don't believe we need to close it off, but I also think that we really can't just add park benches or picnic tables or just this or that, as it would seem. We should do that as a local government agency. Opening the park is a thing, and if we have to open it in a way that is handicap accessible because of federal regulation,
Right,
that
but
we
it
are subject to.
doesn't have anything to do with the dock, right? I mean, the parking and the ADA accessibility and the dock are separate, right? And when I get, because I got a lot of emails leading up to this meeting where people said, council's not going to vote in favor of the park. There are certain members of council who don't want the park to happen. And I don't think that there has ever been a meeting where we sat here and said we didn't want the park to go forward. We've just had different ideas about how it might best serve the town. One of them being that the dock was extremely expensive and perhaps, based on what Carol Jackson said, for instance, at the Rethink Folly Road meeting, where she said people were at Cutico looking at the creek and said, man, it'd be awesome if there was more of this. And that, to me, a light bulb went off and said, well, why don't we just recreate what Cutico has on the town property and put it right there? We don't have to spend $250,000 or any hundreds of thousands of dollars on a dock when we can simply make it, as you say, ADA accessible. We have to do that. And then we can give people a place where they can just hang out under the shade, and that would be the extent of it. So I bring all that up to say that the many emails that I got seem to be misinformation, that the park is not going to be open or the town is not going to go forward with it. What we're trying to do is parse out the cost and be very responsible stewards with your money, and not spend your money in a way that's irresponsible, or that might even be something that's a little bit more than what's needed.
Councilman Bowles, I greatly appreciate to hear. What was troubling about the last meeting was actually remarks along the lines that the people of James Island do not want to park on Folly Road. And I think that the members of the public clearly stated that James Islanders do want to park. I'm not sure that they necessarily want I think your points that you made tonight about, whether we spend a lot or a little are well taken. Valid part. So again, you explained that any dock we have would have to be in the existing footprint. What does that imply about cost?
So back in, I think it was October, November, when the engineers came back with that structural report, and then the design phase to move forward with permitting new structure. I know they did throw out that $200,000 number. If they were looking at a much larger dock, a larger pier head, they were also looking at adding a kind of secondary floating dock, which according to OCRM would not be possible. Certainly there's still an amenity, with the dock and the views and trapping and fishing. And then, there's also to consider, and speaking to Kathy, if we didn't have plans to replace that dock, she seemed to think that would be a problem, because that was a big deal for me.
Yeah, I want to speak to some of the issues. I looked at the original Greenbelt application for this. And one of the things that I think that the Greenbelt Committee felt was attractive was the fact that we were going to preserve a lot of the natural drainage patterns that were going into the marsh for, as long as the road has been there. There doesn't seem to be any overt issues with drainage in that location. And I really don't see the purpose in putting in curbs and gutters in that location. That's just something that's adding to the cost. I also don't see why we need 4 parking spaces in addition to the ADA space. And I would make the recommendation that we comply with the ADA element, including open park, by putting a pervious cement pad in place for ADA compliance and make that be a designated handicap space. Get rid of the rest of the pavement and cement because that adds cost to the project. And then just develop the park as we would a passive park as we applied for in the Greenbelt application. The way I see this park is it's a good stop-off point in the Battery to Beach project. It's a great stop-off point if you're going down Folly Road in the multi-use path that the town is putting in. It's nice to have a place to take a break. And I think that that's what this park is geared to do. It's a place where people can get off the trail. I'd like to see a water fountain put in there. I mean, that would be a natural kind of thing to add to it. But for now, I guess the motion that I would make would be to approve an engineering study and plan that eliminates the 4 parking spaces and the associated drainage features and retains the ADA approved parking spot made out of pervious cement. That would be a motion that I would support at this point for moving this park project forward.
So, okay, Councilman Milliken, where we are is we have a motion to approve accepting the contract. And so I think what you suggested is an amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So we move to amend to include a pervious, a single pervious parking.
I'll read it again if you'd like. But the motion is to approve an engineering study and plan that eliminates 4 parking spaces and associated drainage features and retains an ADA approved parking spot made of pervious cement.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Councilman Mullen, second. Thank you, Councilwoman John.
And Mayor, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but if you could face the microphone so I can hear you better, because I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yes, of course. So is there discussion of the amendment?
Well,
Councilman Mullen.
still leaves the dog question up in the air.
So I would say that if we could deal with this and then bring, we can just continue, well, not after if we make this amendment, then we would still be considering the main motion and we can deal with that. I believe that having limited parking is desirable. I have, in reading the more recent responses of the engineering firm and DOT, I've several times read concerns about loose gravel. And if we go to Dock Street Park, our parking there is basically loose gravel. And it's been on my mind that, well, did I say that we should have parking similar to Dock Street Park? It makes sense that I would, because that is exactly what I think. And the town administrator said that, yes, you did. And so I think some of the responses about pervious, about the parking, it is that they, we can't have loose gravel. Now, I certainly never intended that the choices would be loose gravel or pavement. And I think it is worthwhile having them study options about parking. And certainly, I agree that to get the park open and compliant with ADA, we need at least one parking spot. But I don't agree that we should have zero extra parking. That, while in the long run, we can imagine we have people who park in other places and walk. But I do think we should have at least limited parking available. And so I would like to, so if rather than, only one parking spot, I think we should just look at options for pervious parking generally. And then we'll consider again, how much would it cost that single pervious handicap? What would extra parking count? And like you, Councilman Milliken, I'm very skeptical about parking in gutters. And so I would like to avoid that if all possible.
That's what the motion addresses. I'm very concerned about curb and gutter. Because what that does is it creates a chute for water going into a place that never had one before. And there's a natural filtration process that takes place now as water percolates through the park into the marsh. And that's what I would like to continue rather than shunting it through. Correct.
Well, okay. All right, so any further discussion?
I have a question, because we're talking about only having one parking space for ADA compliant right there at the park. And I hear your concerns, Mayor, but I thought that when we discussed this previously, part of the reason we have those Santee Street parking spaces is so that they could access Brantley Park. Is that not correct?
That is the benefit of the parking.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
That's the benefit of the parking street.
So yes, those parking spaces at Santee Street are for they could be used for Brantley Park for non-ADA stuff. Yes?
Yes, they could.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so is there any further discussion? So what we'll do now, if there's no further discussion of the amendment, then we will vote on the amendment to develop an engineering study for a single handicap parking spot.
Do we have to dispose of the main motion first?
No,
and do this?
no, we have to do, I think we should do the amendment first.
Okay, all right.
All right, so all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So it's 4 in favor, I oppose it. Because I think that we should keep some parking. I mean, all in favor of, exploring maybe. All right, so now we're on the main motion, with further discussion, the motion has to be.
Just about the dog, I thought we talked about this before, but can't we apply for the dog permit and it lasts for 5 years before we have to actually do anything with it?
So, yes, exactly, and so, so what we know is that now, is that the, the permit will be asking for is a dock is appreciably the same footprint, the same location. And then it's, and it'll be the same size, and, not additional increasing the size in any way. And that, I would ask that we, the council approve having the town administrator have the engineering firm develop preliminary design and do permitting to obtain permission for replacement dock.
When you say it's taking permission to apply for a permit,
Yes, apply for a permit.
but not actually construct the dock.
No, but what the request is, the preliminary design is, we believe is necessary for getting the permit. This is what we're asking to permit. And it will have to be similar, it'll be basically the same footprint, similar kind of dock.
OCRN will require a new engineering or a new schematic in order to get a permit for the same footprint.
Yes, and they may require a more recent survey of that area, of the actual wetlands. I'm not sure.
No, I went at low tide this week and took pictures, and I went at more high tide and took pictures, and that dock barely touches any water, even when the water's in. I just hate for us to throw a lot of money at it, when I don't know that there's gonna be fishing and crabbing access for residents right there for 5 hour, 50 tide schedule, and 2/3 of that, there's no water there. Like no water at all. I just hate to spend any money on engineers or anything right now where that just does not seem like a smart way to spend people's money.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't agree to building a new dock either. I think that that's not a good expense for the town's money. The Tidal Creek is very, very, very small. And to think that people are going to be able to kayak out of that creek may be a non-starter. Like they could get maybe a few feet down and then they'd have to turn right back around and come back up. Otherwise we'll be doing, rescues out of the mud for stranded kayakers is my thought.
Well, I think that the dock has great views. At high tide anyway, it is available for fishing. People can throw their fishing line, not straight down, but out into the water. But it is not, it's not deep water, that's for sure. But I would again, so my motion is that council obtain preliminary design and permitting from our engineering firm so that we will get a permit and then we will decide later whether to actually construct the dock. And I think it's important to understand that the $200,000 figure is, OCRN has basically said that's enough. That was for a dock that is not going to be permitted. It'll be like the actual construction dock will be much cheaper.
How much are we paying for the engineering study of the dock, or the schematic of the dock?
I don't have a firm estimate yet, but I did give them, I kind of asked different things, different scenarios to get some ballpark numbers. I think it would cost probably around $7 million to do the design permitting, the preliminary design permitting, and then and I don't have a number for redesign and permitting with DOT, but I can.
So we talking about the dock?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So the $7,000 is for OCRM design and OCRM permitting for the dock. And so if it's, so we believe it'll be successful, and that we'll have a permit that will be for 5 years. And during that 5 years window, we will be able to construct the dock.
This also sounds like something that as long as the dock is there, we could do later. we're just replacing the footprint of the dog park, so as long as it retains its footprint, we can come back. You know, when I get 100 emails of people begging to go out on the dock and see the beautiful situation out there, you know, we can address those then, I would think.
So anyway, so I make a motion that we adopt this.
If we vote this down, is it gonna happen anyway? Is this gonna be one of those things where we vote no to it and then I find out later that we did it anyway? Like the CNT gravel lot?
So I make a motion that we expend $7,000 to do design, preliminary design permitting for the dock. Is there a second?
Do we know it'll be $7,000, or do you want to just leave it more open or until we know the costs?
Okay, so I'll leave on the $7,000. So I would make a motion, I will withdraw that motion. And I make a motion that we seek preliminary design and permitting for the replacement dock. Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Right. Any further discussion?
Could you repeat that, please, Mayor? I cannot hear you.
Motion is for, to ask the engineering firm to do preliminary design and permitting for a replacement dock. I'm sorry, Councilwoman, I know I want to look at you and speak to you rather than look at the microphone.
That's okay. I understand.
Is this another amendment, I guess, to this
It is.
request for approval?
Okay, is there any further discussion of the amendment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
That passes. So now we're on the main motion to approve the contract as modified, move forward with the part. Any further discussion? Yes,
But
Councilman.
this is planning still, right? This isn't pouring cement or anything. This is planning still.
Yes, so from these amendments, the document really, I don't think we'll move forward with the opening part. I think that, I think Councilman Bowles was correct that, you know, as long as, you know, the entry to the dock is blocked out now, we can open the park and not the dock. As soon as we have, the ADA compatible trails and ADA parking. And, but what we are going to do is find out what we pay for permeable parking, for the ADA parking.
And what it would cost, and that would come back to us, right?
And we believe in it, as the town administrator said, if we have to make a decision whether to keep the current contractor before August. So we have a June line to come to some final decision. Councilwoman Young.
Okay, so just because I am really handicapped over here, not being able to hear very well, this next vote that we're doing is saying that we will allow money to be funded for a dock of some sort and spend the $7,000 for the permit. Is that correct?
No, the vote that we would make now would approve the contract. However, we will, town administrator has to go back and look at a permeable option for a handicap parking space. And come back.
Okay, so how does, forgive me, but how does that impact the bid that we have? How does that tie into the bid that we have for the dock and destruction and rebuild? Does that commit us in any way to that?
It's unclear what will happen, but we will have to make an ask the contractor to make an adjustment in the bid for the handicap parking space. Probably will be more expensive, but we'll see. It could be for that one parking space.
How would it be more expensive for less parking?
We have to do it anyway. It's gonna be the same cost for the parking space.
Generally permeable parking.
I just want to make sure that what we're voting on next does not include our saying that we approve potential funds for the dock right this very second. Because I think we need, that's not where we need to go. So forgive me if I'm not following protocol. I'm sitting in a hotel room in the middle of the Midwest trying to do this meeting.
Having administrators, engineers, and they will do preliminary design and permitting for a new dock. So it does involve expenditure of funds along for the dock. And then
I can't hear you. I need you to look towards the camera. Or Ashley, will you repeat it for me, please?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you great.
So, the vote would be for, moving forward with the contract contingent on redesigning the parking for one permeable space. Getting those numbers, back and I guess reevaluating at council in July or August. That's it.
there was no part about the dock.
Okay, because that was amended and added. Along with that, it includes engineering costs for preliminary design and permitting of the dock.
Okay, and how much is that preliminary cost? Do we know or we don't know?
It could approximately be $7,000, but I don't have the clear number yet.
Okay.
It should clearly be less than what the current estimate is if we take out the drainage and additional parking spots. One would suspect.
I think that's likely.
And I think this,
I didn't mean to suggest that the whole thing would be more expensive, but just the one parking spot.
and I guess the vote needs to be clear that it's not accepting either alternative. Because one alternative was demolishing the dock, the other one was, getting rid of all the trails. If you're accepting the low bid, then we're coming back, right?
We're not accepting any bid at this point, I don't think. I think we're still planning something.
Okay, that was my confusion. I didn't know if we were gonna work it as a change order.
So
Technically on the agenda, it is, we're voting to accept this or not.
So it would be accepting the contractor in his contract, but we are going to seek a change order to require.
So I have a question. So if we vote yes for accepting this contract, and then we as a team decide not to rebuild a dock, are we on the hook for the contract that this person we have awarded it to?
No, there's no contract cost for rebuilding a dock in this. They do have a number to demolish the dock, but that's it.
Okay.
So, no, we are not voting to demolish the dock. We're not accepting that. Or removing the trails, I'm not sure about it.
The prudent thing to do is to shoot this whole thing down and start it over with the menu that we're asking for right now. Because to go back to the record of what we've been discussing and cut this up, and go ask the contractor to do it again is not clear. And the original agenda item that I made a motion successfully to defer last time was for us to approve scope of work. So I would advocate that we shoot this entire thing down and that we ask them to just tell us what will it cost for one ADA parking space with permeable surface? And what will it cost to tell us, what will it cost to apply for the dock permit? And that's it.
We would like to negotiate with the low bidder for what these costs will be.
I understand that.
If you're granted a contract, then we can ask for a change order based upon the change the council wants.
This vote could be received as approving in an altered form their bid.
That's my concern as well.
I'm not sure I understand what's that concern. This is, got a couple of rules. It may be, I think we are accepting them as a contractor. But we are going to see a change order to remove the paid parking and instead have permeable parking for handicap spaces. And then separate from that, and included in this overall motion, this is not part of what the contractors agreed to do. We're going to ask the engineering firm to do permitting for, to do preliminary design and permitting for,
And before we approve any ground being broken, we will see it again based on the bids, right?
yes.
Okay.
So there's no further discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
No.
No,
So that passes. All right, so now we'll go to the Perrigan drainage culvert repair. Ashley, would you speak?
Mark?
Yes, this is in the Quail Run neighborhood, and we've had a lot of issues with that. The entire neighborhood's drainage is corrugated metal pipe, and it is past its prime. It is in the state of health, it's catastrophic, and this is one of those where it has developed a sinkhole. There's a steel plate over it now, and the county has put together a cost estimate to this.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That passes. So now we go to James Arnold Arts and Cultural Center alarm system. Ashley, would you speak to that?
Yeah, Coastal Burglar, they do our system here. They have provided, an estimate. It would, be 7 cameras, installation, around, $29.50. And then the monthly fee for that is $35. We utilize them here and, for a couple of reasons. One, the sheriff's deputies have the same, system, and they're able to swipe their existing cards that they have through the sheriff's office, to get in and out. And then, also, I have an app on my phone and computer, and can just pull up the cameras.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Just out of curiosity, how long do they, oh yeah, I'll make that motion.
And, is there a second?
Second.
So Councilman Milliken, you have a question?
Yeah, how long do they, keep the data, for review?
Mark, do you remember?
Cameras, I think, are 60 days, and as far as who swipes in, that data we always have.
And we've had to pull footage before, for different things.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
aye.
So that passes. Next, we have the memorandum of agreement with the city for cost sharing behind drainage project.
Yes, this is the drainage project that the town has, designed and permitted, and the city, a while ago had agreed to the cost share. It took a while for it to go through their, process of getting all the approvals. And then this is the agreement saying that they will basically reimburse us, for up to, $65,000, which is 50% of the estimate of the project.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That Passes. So let's go to the easement clarification for compliance with Colorado overlay order. Ashley.
Kristen Crane is our planning director here, and thought she could touch on the actual site plan.
And Ashley, I'm so sorry. If I can't hear. If whoever's talking, is she gonna be doing the presentation? Yes? Okay, I thought if you were talking, Ashley, if you could aim a little bit more my way, but otherwise, go ahead.
Present this one?
No, he doesn't.
I think it's just hearing her, I think she has that. in her
Okay.
packet.
So I'm just gonna go over some of the site plan features that are on the Chase, development plan that we approved, so you can see how they are in line with the Hollywood corridor overlay. They have a 12-use, multi-use tract that's separated from Holly Road that actually goes, adjacent across the former Pizza Hut parcel as well. They have 23 parking spaces with 2 ADA spaces. One of those is a van accessible space with a crosshatch area for the exits of the van. And then they have 5 pervious parking spots on the rear. The parking is all on the side of the rear according to our ordinances. They have a 15-foot right-of-way buffer on the front, and then a 10-foot land use buffer on the rear. And they are installing a bus stop bench and pad for a future bus shelter. We couldn't get the bus pull-out due to DOT space restraints on this site that would have encroached onto the other county site that's next door. I think that's it on the site plan.
And so the reason you all are seeing this is because in the easement document, it references the conceptual site plan, before, it moved towards redevelopment. So one of the things that we had to make sure was that it met our easement requirements of the public parking, which all of the parking is still public, same number of parking spaces. Obviously it doesn't look exactly the same because there's a building there now and the parking has to be behind the building. But as far as the parking goes, it is, we require them to have so many pervious spaces, just as for some reason the site plan that was referenced a while ago didn't have any. And then the easement along the frontage is still there.
That's the landscaping part around the sidewalk.
Yes.
So, is there a motion to approve?
Well, what are we approving? It's just clarification, right?
Clarification of our easement.
So do we still have the same number of parking spaces that were sort of, I thought, dedicated to the town before? How many were there?
23.
23? And those are usable after hours, after the bank closes?
They are available, after hours, but also, on Saturdays and Sundays, well, all day Sunday, and then after Saturday, after 1.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
And how many bus routes are available on those days that these parking spaces are actually available? Do we know?
Well, it's one route, Route 31, and they did just double the frequency on Hollywood Road.
Okay. Thank you.
So what has changed exactly from the original right of way that we had before? What was the change?
Well, I guess the actual easement area along the frontage hasn't really changed because that's still our easement.
Right.
But the public parking that was referenced on the original site plan,
It just moved.
the look of it
All right.
is obviously different.
It's the same amount of parking, it's just you comply with volume and overlay and you move behind the pool. So we have all the equal rights we had before. Is there any further, is there a motion in favor? Okay. I second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So that passes. Okay, so next we'll go into committee reports. The first committee is the land use committee,
I have no report at this time.
environmental beautification committee.
Yes, James Island Pride is doing a litter pickup this Saturday from 8:30 to 11:30. As usual, meet here on the porch at Town Hall, pick up supplies and pick litter up all the roadways at one time. We hope everyone can join us on Saturday. I think we're gonna have good weather and we're starting to have out earlier just because. So, 8:30 to 11:30 here at Town Hall should be a large time for all. We also have another litter pickup scheduled for June 12th. This is a regularly scheduled about the highway pickup. It's usually a bigger attended event, so this could be one as well. Same deal, we meet on the porch. James Island Pride meets on the third Thursday every month at 5:30. We've been meeting via Zoom, but that's looking like it's going to change. Can't wait to see everybody in person. Our Helping Hands program is a program that's set up to help residents of the town find the ability to care for their yards themselves. Stan Kozakowski has been a leader of this. It's usually harder to get volunteers in the summertime. So we're hoping that if anybody wants to volunteer, that they can contact Stan and help them out cutting yards. They do this about once a month for residents that aren't able to otherwise do it. Stan's contact information is area code 860-847-0544. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for Councilman? Hearing none, I have no report from Shores Committee. Public Safety Committee, Councilman Gomes.
Yeah, I want to nominate you for Homewood, Brad House. He came to our meeting in April, the session. He's going to give Singapore Forest, everybody is good. He's already asking about and asking some key questions. And I really think he's going to be very good. And I'll thank you, Justin, and I'll Dan, and I'll and he's just like that. And he wants to.
Second.
All right, so second, all in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So now we'll go to the History Committee, and I believe that Councilman, you have a nomination.
I do. I would like to nominate Susanna Sheldon as as my representative on the History Committee. Susanna's been very involved in public school governance and has a lot of interest in basically K through 12 education. So I think she would be an outstanding addition to the History Commission and bring that element of education.
So second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. So Rethink Valley Road met, and I think the biggest news is that our consultant, local firm, is going to organize a meeting for all the elected officials in James Island. Basically, the personnel, same people that are on the James Island Governmental Council for a review of Rethink Valley Road, the process that was developed, state of plan, and so on. I think that was very helpful for especially people that are new or that haven't been here for all the years since that plan was first started. The committee also recommended that the town move forward with Brantley Park, and I think the town council tonight made some progress towards that. So I'm very, very pleased with that, and I'm sure all the steering committee will be pleased as well. Is there any questions I have? Yes. Next, Drainage Committee, Councilman.
We had a meeting, and it was very productive. We spoke about, Income Creek Basin and, the Lighthouse Point Basin and also the Seaside Huntsville Drainage Park. And we also had some good information regarding this preliminary drainage study. All that, we also looked at our minutes, the details, but it's very productive. And, I appreciate those, you work with Megan. And our next meeting, we probably sometime in August, I just don't have a precise date on that yet, I'll let you know.
All right, thank you. Next, Business Development Committee, Councilman Holst.
I'll have a report, but I think someone's got a nomination.
Yes, I would like to nominate Joe Walters to serve on the Business Development Committee.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. So next, the Tree Advisory Committee, Councilman Miller.
Yes, we had a meeting of the Tree Advisory Council on May 11th. The Tree Council is in the process of gathering and comparing information related to local tree ordinances and tree protection with the hope of generating improvements to the town tree ordinance. The idea is to provide additional instruction as to tree species recommendations and better placement guidelines. We also are watching pots that hold our live oak seedlings planted this past spring. The goal of our tree council is to have approximately 200 pots with trees for distribution to James Island residents. We haven't decided on a date for that, but it would help to have the trees actually germinate. So. that's
Thank you.
all I
Any
have.
questions for Councilman Miller? I've been watering the seedlings up there.
That's true. Thank you.
All right. Next, James Island Governmental Council. I have no report on that. I don't know that we have a meeting scheduled at this time. So next, we have a proclamation for Safe Boating Week. Safe Boating, excuse me. And so whereas recreational boating is fun and enjoyable, and citizens in the district of James Island are fortunate that we have sufficient resources to accommodate the wide variety of pleasure boating activities. Whereas at times our waterways can become crowded and boating for the unprepared can be a hazardous activity. Whereas not knowing or obeying the navigational rules or the nautical rules of the road, or drinking alcohol, or taking drugs while operating a boat, or choosing not to wear life jackets or personal flotation devices are examples of dangerous behavior or lacking good judgment. Whereas on average, excess of 600 people die each year of boating-related accidents. Whereas the vast majority of such accidents are caused by human error or judgment. Whereas a significant number of those drowning victims would be alive today if they'd been wearing life jackets. Whereas life jackets and PFDs are more comfortable and more attractive than those years past. Whereas National Safe Boating Week this year is scheduled for May 22nd, 28th. Now therefore be it proclaimed on this day that the Mayor and Town Council of James Island, on behalf of the town, urge all of those who boat to wear a life jacket and practice safe boating habits. Is there a motion approved? Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you so much for coming and for, the town, you live on an island and we believe safe boating is extremely important.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, indeed. Thank you all.
Next, we have Resolution 2021-05, CPC funding for fiscal year 2022 Regatta Road Sidewalk Project. Ashley, please speak to that.
Yes, this is an approval of basically our application and its cost share. Our estimated construction cost is $250,000. So we would be requesting a 50% match for $125,000.
Is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next, we have a request for planning commission to recommend regulation for placement of small cell wireless facilities. Ashley, will you speak to that? Councilman, you want to?
You can supplement what I have to say. At our last meeting, council meeting, we had a person come, I think it spoke at our last meeting on the call. And it's something that really needs to be looked into. the science behind 5G is spotty at best, it's not fully developed. We really worry about the health of that, especially the children. Some pictures were sent, she had some pictures, she goes, the children playing on a soccer field with, one of those antennas right there at the soccer field. And state law says we can't, if I'm correct, it says that we cannot prevent it, but we can regulate it. And I'm just wanting the planning commission to look into this and see what we can and cannot do. Because I think that manufacturers and installers of this 5G technology need to have someone what they can and cannot do. Is that kind of just?
Is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Well, I can say, Councilman Hall, I can make a motion and we'll count that as a second. Milliken, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That passes. So next is resolution 2021-07, the Central Mayor for conduct unbecoming an elected official and request apology. Is there a motion in favor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, I think it's an important thing to maintain a certain amount of decorum when conducting the business of the town and representing the town. And my hope is that moving forward, that kind of level of respect will be extended to all members of council when they ask a question, that they receive an answer and not necessarily a display. Mayor, I was worried about your health, and I hope that in the future you can control your temper and at least be able to have rational discourse with your council.
Any further discussion?
I agree with this resolution. I did not in the beginning, but to have people from Columbia, experts come at our request and stand up and explain to us something that no one fully understood, and it still to me is a confusing topic. A topic which, a tax relief mechanism which seems to be born out of a dispute. All of that happening in front of these, distinguished guests, I thought it was embarrassing. And I do think that especially at workshops, we ought to be able to ask questions because we were all gathered here to learn about something. And, I look back at the oath that when you become a lawyer, you have to take an oath, and part of it involves civility. And we don't have that in our council oath, so maybe that's something to think about later, that we all come together and craft some sort of agreement, mutual agreement of civility towards one another, because we're all here because we want to be here, because we want to help the town. And so I know I've heard examples of past times when there were confrontations in this hall or other halls or at the parking lot that went unaddressed. And it's too bad that they went unaddressed, because sometimes just making a statement as a group can help prevent it from happening in the future. So I think it's a good idea. That's all I'll say about that.
Any further discussion? Well, in my judgment, that this resolution is really making a mountain out of a molehill. The offending boxes of material are here before us. And I think it's reading the resolution suggests that I was asked a question but I did not answer it. That's not correct. That there was a discussion between a member of council and one of the town's lawyers. And it is my understanding that this discussion continued and the lawyer answered the questions. I just simply wanted to demonstrate for all of council and our guests that having the town mail checks, as it did in 2010, 10 years ago, is very complicated and extreme burden on our staff.
No, we weren't even talking about mailing checks. No one was talking about mailing checks.
Sir,
Checks not on the
discussed with,
And by the way, I would like to point something out here. You didn't just dump the bins. The bins were dumped and then the bins were tossed. The paper was dumped and then the bins were tossed. And there were elderly people in close vicinity to that. And you could have, this is a much more civil discussion that we're having now than we did have at the workshop. All of us ran for office. At least I did, because I want to work for the betterment of James Island. And that means that we have to work as a team. And that type of demonstration is not conducive to teamwork for all of us.
discussed this matter with the people who were here, other than the 3 council members who spoke in favor of this center. And all of them have said that they were not offended, that they thought I made my point well. That includes the commissioners that are here tonight, that none of them felt threatened or offended or anything. And I do want to say, Councilman Biana, please, you are always welcome to ask me questions, our staff questions, or when we have people from out of town who bring in experts to discuss things, feel free to ask them. In no way should you ever feel that I intended to prevent you from asking questions. My only goal was to make sure that our internally hired city roads and the members of council understood rapidly that that is the kind of thing that will happen when we go to return to some system of manual checks. Now, if you want to talk about some alternative system
And
of
I did, Mayor. I did suggest alternatives. I did not suggest mailing checks. But anyway, this is not this discussion isn't about this. The how to disperse the money is not relevant to this resolution, in my opinion. And that's all my comment that I have.
Councilwoman Ghana, I want to again say that please always feel free to ask me questions, council questions, or if we have someone who's coming, representatives.
I can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Well, thank you.
I look forward to receiving my letter of apology by June 1st. I hope you can mail that to the PSD elected officials that were in attendance. Because although they told you that they may not have threatened or anything else by your actions, this is a perfectly graphic example that could have been set in your answer without spilling the contents in kitchen goods. So it's
So is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That for us, the time frame, we can solve that, revenue work issues that the lives of the citizens of this town. And they can spend time with us. And our friend committee of that, we're going to concentrate. We may not get any of the other issues. And that's what's so aggravating about this game. This is turned into a slideshow. So, that's just my opinion.
That's right, and it should not ever happen again.
So all in favor, if there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, so it passes 3-2. Okay, next we will go on to ordinances for second and final reading. The first is ordinance 2021-01, County of James Island Comprehensive Plan. Is there a motion in favor?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Next, we have ordinance 2021-02, draft 2021-22 annual budget. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So next we move to new business, raising salary for the mayor. This is the item that is asked for by Councilman Bowles.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't sure how to go about bringing this, I assume it's by ordinance that the salaries are set. So this was request that we start this conversation now and look at amending the ordinance at future meeting. My reading of the rules or the statutes, and actually, I think, pointing this out as well, that this will not take effect until next election cycle, which will be 2023. But if we are going to do it, and we talk about it now, and perhaps pass the ordinance soon, this is a budgeting matter that we got to think about going forward.
Any other discussion or comments? So, Councilman Bowles, I think that determination of salary for mayor and council is something that we, come to discuss. Thank you. The next item is executive session. The motion to go into executive session. Hearing none, let's go to the next is announcement of closing comments. Councilman Bowles.
Thank you all for being here. And I'm really pleased about this whole no mask thing. It's really nice to see everybody's faces,
Yes.
whether you're scowling or smiling. It's good to see your face.
Councilman Mignano.
I would just like to say thank you, everyone, for all of your hard work, and I wish I was there in person. I will be there next month.
Looking forward to seeing you again. Councilman, okay.
Thanks to everybody, and everybody continue to take care. Those variants are out there, and it's okay to wear a mask. It's still okay, because you don't know. Come July, it might be different. Right now, it's still a little bit scary.
Councilman, Torrance.
Just thanks for everyone for coming. Yes, James, look forward to seeing you all. And on a safe night.
I've been getting information about James Island and vaccination rates were up to 57%, at least the first shot. And I really would encourage all of our residents to, as soon as possible, get vaccinated. Let's bring that number up. Thank you very much. There being no further business, meeting is adjourned.
Hi, sorry I couldn't get the sound worked out better. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. That's okay. I understand. I'm glad you tried to accommodate for me, and I'm sorry I couldn't get there. I just couldn't. So, but next month will be better.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, I will see you soon, okay?
Okay.